It is half of my side of the bed, just Lee again with my bringing you my fourth video in my 5-part video series of the 5 key building blocks of communication. So the first video, if you missed it, was curiosity. The second one was compassion, and then the third one was collaboration. If you missed those videos and you're tuning in for the first time, go back to our IGTV, my side of the bed _ and watch those to catch up to this video. You can also view it on our YouTube page, Chris and Leisha Hayes, and then you can also check it out on our Facebook page, My Side of the Bed. So today's video is going to talk about connections. Connections in communication, not connections in your relationship, because we're connected to our spouses, right? So we don't need to talk about how to connect with our spouse. And if you do need to talk about how to connect to your spouse, this is not the video that I'm going to get into that with. So this is strictly about connection when it comes to communication. So if you and your spouse are have a connection, you and your spouse have a connection, or you would not be together. But sometimes our communication gets a little bit lost in connections. Our connection gets a little bit lost in communication. I should say that was reversed. Our connections get lost in communication. I'm going to slow down because I'm going to get tongue twisted with connection and communication. Too many C's here, too many C's. Okay, so what does having a lost communication, or see, there I go. What does having a lost connection look and feel like? So I'm just going to throw this scenario out. If I go to Chris and ask him a question, topic that I want to discuss, that I feel like it's very important to me, and I want to discuss this topic with him. So I go to him, I ask him a question, and his response is, oh yeah, that sounds good. Real short, no dialogue after it. That leads me to believe, okay, there's a lost connection, because I feel like the question that I asked deserves a little bit more dialogue, a little bit more communication. And he felt like the question I asked was okay answering with just a 2-3 word answer. There's your lost connection. So again, not saying that we're falling out of love because our connection is lost in our communication. It's just sometimes we're just not on the same page. So we have to get on that same page if you want your issue or topic, whatever you want to communicate to your spouse, if you want them to really take it as important as it is to you, we have to make sure we're connecting with each other. So it is said that we are exposed to over 35,000 communication messages of some type every single day. So just think about when you drive to work, you're listening to the radio, you're hearing those commercials. Even if you have Sirius XM, they still have a little bit of commercials in there, some sponsored ads and things like that. The billboards that you pass, the flashy lights on buildings, things like that. All of those are different types of communications that we come into on an everyday basis. When we're scrolling on Facebook and Instagram, what pops up? Those sponsored ads pop up. What do? Our minds are like our spam email. We take out the ones, we weed out the ones that we don't have a connection to, and we remember the ones that we do have a connection with, right? So that is how we communicate with our spouse sometimes, is we talk to them every day, same routine every day, day after day after day. Sometimes we tend to tune out the communication topics that do not connect to us. Not doing it intentionally or deliberately, but that's just how our brain works. Sometimes we're at capacity. We can only think about what connects to us. Okay, so don't take it out on your spouse if they say something to you or you say something to them and they don't feel like it's that important. It's just because they're not connected. It didn't connect to them at that moment. Okay. So one thing that we want to make sure that we are doing when it comes to your spouse is that you or your partner, you have to have an emotional connection so that it is easier to communicate with them. We have to think about sometimes that connection is broken because we don't primarily communicate with words at first. When we start to communicate, we communicate emotionally. So our minds are making judgments just by your tone of voice, your facial expression, your distractedness, your eye contact, your body language. Our minds are already thinking about how this conversation is going to go just before those words even start coming out and start processing what you're actually saying. So that is a key factor in connection when you're communicating. Think about your facial expression, your body language, your tone of voice, your eye contact. What is your spouse doing at the time? Are they distracted? Are they watching their favorite show or working on their car or doing yard work or whatever, where they're not going to pay attention to you when you're trying to talk to them about something important to you? So we want to make sure that you establish an emotional connection first. Establish that emotional connection first. Another connection, or going along the lines with that emotional connection, make sure you really are connected. So say like they have your full attention, they're not doing anything, you have a good, body language, tone of voice, and you guys had an argument earlier that day that you never resolved, and that you want to bring this topic to them. Do you think that this is the right time? Probably not. Just because you're over the argument, they may not be. So make sure you resolve any prior issues that you've had if you want to communicate and be emotionally connected for that topic, for them to see the importance of it that you feel it is. And then ask yourself, are you really curious to learn about their perspective of your topic? There's another C word, curiosity. That really means when you present something to them, if I ask Chris a question and I say, this is what I've been feeling, what do you think? Do I really want to know his opinion? Am I really curious about his opinion? If I'm not the right time to communicate that, because I'm not ready to hear that perspective to hear his perspective of this topic. So again, you have to be emotionally ready and you have to be connected in order for this communication topic to go over well. And then once you feel like you get into that conversation, that you guys are having that wonderful conversation, make sure your energy is good, because the energy that you give off affects others. As much as we would like to think that our energy is perfect, sometimes our energy is just not perfect, and the other person is not receiving good energy, and so they're not receiving a good communication, a good connection. Their connection is a little staticky because of the energy that we're giving off. And then finally, when we do get into that conversation, make sure you are listening with the intent to understand what your spouse is saying, not listening with the intent to respond. Okay, really trying to understand what they are saying, and not, I'm going to listen just so I can respond to what you're saying. I really didn't hear, I heard you, but I'm not listening. So breathe and make sure you are understanding what they're saying and not with the agenda to respond to what they're saying. So that will wrap up connections. If you have a topic that you would like Chris and I to discuss or do a video about, send us an email at samesheetsdifferentpillows@gmail.com. I'll talk to you guys in the next video.